Ma'am, you need to move. Now! The flight attendant's voice cut through Terminal 7 like a blade. Marcus Washington looked up from his Wall Street Journal, first-class boarding pass trembling in his weathered hands. Gate agent Jessica Mills stood blocking the first-class boarding line, her eyes scanning Marcus from head to toe. Her expression said everything. The expensive suit didn't matter. The leather briefcase didn't matter. The platinum credit card visible in his wallet didn't matter. What mattered was the color of his skin. These black stories remind us that real-life stories still unfold in 2025, where touching stories of discrimination happen in plain sight. Marcus had built a billion-dollar empire, but right now, he was just another black man being told he didn't belong. Have you ever been judged by your appearance in the most humiliating way possible? 9:47 a.m., 43 minutes until departure. Marcus held up his boarding pass again, the barcode clearly visible. Seat 1A, first class, confirmed reservation. Mills barely glanced at it. Sir, coach passengers board last. Company policy. Her voice carried that particular tone service workers use when they've already decided you're the problem. This is a first-class ticket, Marcus said quietly, his voice steady despite the heat rising in his chest. System errors happen all the time, Mills replied, already turning away. Upgrades don't always process correctly. Behind the gate counter, Mills whispered to her colleague, loud enough for nearby passengers to hear, probably used points or got some kind of comp upgrade. Marcus reached into his wallet, producing his driver's license and the platinum credit card he'd used for the purchase. Here's my ID and the card used for payment. Mills glanced at the documents with the enthusiasm of someone being asked to clean a bathroom. Anyone can have a credit card, sir. That's when At Travel Truth started recording. Sarah Martinez, a 28-year-old travel blogger, had been waiting for her own flight when she noticed the commotion. Her phone was already out, live streaming to her 50,000 TikTok followers. The viewer count climbed, 1 in 27, 203, 445. Y'all, something's happening at Gate 7, she whispered into her phone. This is not okay. Mills called over her shoulder. Karen, I need you at the gate. Supervisor Karen Rodriguez approached with the measured steps of someone who'd dealt with difficult passengers before. She wore her authority like armor, badge gleaming, radio crackling with airport chatter. What seems to be the problem here? Rodriguez asked, though her eyes had already assessed the situation and reached a conclusion. This gentleman claims he has first class, Mills said, the word claims hanging in the air like an accusation, but I think we need to verify this isn't fraudulent. Marcus's phone buzzed. The screen showed a calendar alert. Board meeting, 2 p.m., Sky Connect Airlines merger discussion. He dismissed it quietly, but not before Rodriguez noticed the expensive device, the Patek Philippe watch on his wrist, the hand-stitched leather briefcase. These details should have mattered. They didn't. Sir, we need to verify this isn't fraudulent, Rodriguez said, her tone suggesting this was a routine procedure rather than targeted harassment. The live stream viewer count hit 500. Comments flooded in. This is disgusting. Sue them. Record everything. Racial Profiling 2025. Business traveler Sarah Chen, waiting for her connection to Seattle, started recording on her phone. She'd seen this before. She knew how it would end if nobody watched. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now boarding first-class passengers for Flight 447 to Chicago. The gate announcement echoed through the terminal. Other first-class passengers began boarding around the confrontation. They walked past Marcus with the careful blindness of people who didn't want to get involved. Some looked uncomfortable. Most looked away. 9:52 a.m., 38 minutes until departure. Marcus reached into his wallet again, this time pulling out a small black card. It disappeared back into his pocket so quickly that only the closest observers might have noticed. But Rodriguez caught a glimpse of the titanium surface, the embossed logo that marked it as an airline industry VIP card. Her expression flickered for just a moment. Sir, I'm going to need you to step aside so we can resolve this quietly, Rodriguez said, gesturing toward the customer service counter. Marcus remained where he stood. I have a valid ticket and valid identification. I'd like to board my flight. Behind him, the first-class line continued moving. A woman in designer jeans and a Harvard sweatshirt boarded without question. An elderly man with a coach ticket was politely redirected to the correct line with a smile. The difference was stark. The message was clear. Mills leaned closer to her colleague, whispering, I bet he bought the ticket with a stolen credit card. Happens all the time. The whisper carried. Several passengers heard it. Sarah Chen's recording caught every word. At Travel Truth's live stream had grown to 2,000 viewers. The comments section exploded. This is 2025? Someone call the news. What airline is this? Everyone needs to see this. 9:54 a.m., 36 minutes until departure. Rodriguez's radio crackled. Security to Gate 7. Security to Gate 7. Marcus's hands remained steady on his briefcase handle. Inside, airport industry reports and merger documents sat inches from his fingertips. The irony wasn't lost on him. He was literally carrying the future of the airline that was currently humiliating him. But they didn't know that. Yet. Airport Security Officer James Park arrived with the heavy footsteps of authority. His uniform was crisp, his expression neutral, but his presence changed everything. Conversations around Gate 7 quieted. Children stopped running. Even the CNN broadcast seemed to lower its volume. What's the situation here? Park asked, his hand resting casually on his radio. Mills stepped forward, her confidence boosted by backup. We have a situation with fraudulent boarding. This individual is claiming to have a first-class ticket, but we have reason to believe it's not legitimate. Fraudulent? Marcus asked, his voice still calm but carrying an edge that made nearby passengers look up from their phones. The live stream audience had exploded. At Travel Truth's viewer count showed 2,847 and climbing. Her followers were sharing the stream across every platform. The hashtag #HadGategate was already trending in 3 cities. Sir, we can resolve this quietly if you just cooperate, Rodriguez said, her tone suggesting that cooperation meant accepting humiliation. Marcus looked at the growing crowd of onlookers. Phones were recording from multiple angles. The gate area had become an impromptu theater, with him as the unwilling star of a show he never auditioned for. I've been cooperative, Marcus said, his voice carrying the weight of 47 years of experience dealing with exactly this kind of situation. I have a valid ticket and valid identification. Sarah Chen stepped closer, her phone capturing every word. This is racial profiling, she said loud enough for everyone to hear. I'm recording this. Mills's face flushed. Ma'am, this is none of your business. Discrimination is everyone's business, Chen replied, not lowering her phone. The boarding continued around them like a river flowing around a stone. First-class passengers streamed past, their eyes carefully averted. Some looked uncomfortable. Others seemed annoyed that their boarding was being delayed by this disruption. 9:58 a.m., 32 minutes until departure. Park moved closer to Marcus, his presence designed to intimidate. Sir, these folks are just trying to do their job. Why don't we step over to the customer service counter and sort this out? The customer service counter was 30 feet away, around a corner, away from the cameras and witnesses. Marcus understood the geography of power. He'd been moved away from witnesses before, in boardrooms and back offices where the real decisions were made. I'd prefer to resolve this here, Marcus said. Sir, you're creating a disturbance, Rodriguez said, her voice rising slightly. If you don't cooperate, we'll have to involve additional security. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Around them, passengers began to murmur. The energy was shifting, becoming dangerous. At Travel Truth's live stream had hit 5,000 viewers. The comments were coming too fast to read. Call the police. This is insane. What airline? Someone help him. This is America 2025. A gate agent from another airline walked over, drawn by the commotion. She watched for 30 seconds, then shook her head and walked away. Professional courtesy meant not interfering with another airline's customer service. Marcus glanced at his watch. The Patek Philippe caught the terminal lighting, its complications showing time zones across the world. In Tokyo, markets were opening. In London, his merger team was already in conference rooms preparing for the afternoon call. In Chicago, a boardroom full of executives was waiting for his presentation about the future of American aviation. Mills whispered to another colleague. "Probably bought the ticket with a stolen card. These scammers are getting more sophisticated." The whisper carried. It always did. Sarah Chen's recording captured every word. "Ma'am, what did you just say?" Chen asked, stepping closer. Mills's face went pale. "I didn't say anything to you. You said he probably bought the ticket with a stolen card. That's slander." "I said no such thing." But the recording didn't lie. Neither did the live stream. 5,000 people had heard it. The clip would be on Twitter within minutes. 10:02 a.m., 28 minutes until departure. Park's patience was wearing thin. "Sir, I'm going to ask you one more time to step aside. We can handle this professionally, or we can do it the hard way." Marcus looked around the gate area. 50 passengers were now watching openly. Phones recorded from every angle. The live stream viewer count had passed 7,000. This wasn't just about a seat anymore. It was about something bigger. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," Marcus said quietly, his voice carrying the authority of someone who'd spent decades in boardrooms. "May I make one phone call?" Rodriguez hesitated. Phone calls meant lawyers. Lawyers meant complications. Complications meant paperwork that nobody wanted to fill out. "One call," she said. "Make it quick." Marcus pulled out his phone, scrolled through his contacts, and dialed. The call connected immediately. "It's Marcus," he said, his voice so quiet that only the closest bystanders could hear. "I'm at Gate 7. He listened for a moment, then hung up. "How long?" Rodriguez asked. "About 90 seconds. The gate area fell into an uncomfortable silence. Passengers continued boarding, but everyone was watching out of the corner of their eyes. The live stream audience had grown to 8,000. Comments flooded in from across the country as the video was shared from platform to platform. Park shifted his weight, his hand still resting on his radio. Mills busied herself with paperwork, but her eyes kept darting back to Marcus. Rodriguez checked her watch. "Sir, your 90 seconds are up." That's when her radio crackled to life. "Rodriguez, this is Control. We need a supervisor at Gate 7 immediately." The voice was sharp, urgent. Rodriguez's face went pale. "Control, this is Rodriguez. I'm already at Gate 7 handling a situation. Get Torres down there. Now!" Amanda Torres was the ground supervisor, Rodriguez's boss. She handled the situations that were too big for regular supervisors. She dealt with VIPs, federal air marshals, and corporate executives who could end careers with a phone call. Marcus smiled slightly. It was the first time he'd smiled since arriving at the gate. 90 seconds, he said quietly. 10:04 a.m., 26 minutes until departure. Torres arrived at a near run, her face flushed, her radio crackling with urgent chatter. She took one look at the scene. Marcus standing calmly with his briefcase, Rodriguez and Mills flanking him like guards, Park looming behind them, and dozens of passengers recording everything. Her face went white. "What have you done?" she whispered to Rodriguez. The question hung in the air like a judgment. Around them, the gate area fell silent. Even the boarding stopped as passengers sensed the shift in power. Marcus Washington stood exactly where he'd been standing for the past 17 minutes, but everything had changed. The real story was about to begin. Amanda Torres took one look at Marcus Washington, and her entire world tilted sideways. "Mr. Washington," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I am so incredibly sorry for this misunderstanding." The words hit the gate area like a physical force. Rodriguez's mouth opened slightly. Mills took a step backward. Park's hand moved away from his radio. Marcus remained perfectly still, his briefcase handle steady in his grip. "Amanda, what's going on?" Mills asked, confusion replacing her earlier confidence. Torres ignored her completely. Her focus was entirely on Marcus, and the growing horror on her face told its own story. Travel Truth's live stream had exploded to 12,000 viewers. The comments section was moving too fast to read. "Who is he? Plot twist. She knows him. This is getting good. What's happening?" Sarah Chen moved closer with her phone, sensing the shift in dynamics. This was no longer about a disputed boarding pass. This was about power, and power was about to be revealed. "I'd like to speak with your airport general manager," Marcus said, his voice carrying the quiet authority of someone who was used to being obeyed. Torres's hands were shaking as she reached for her radio. "Control, this is Torres. I need General Manager Kim at Gate 7 immediately." "Torres, what's your situation status?" "Priority 1, she said, her voice cracking slightly. "Corporate Priority 1. Rodriguez stepped forward, still not understanding. "Amanda, this passenger has been disruptive and—" "Be quiet!" Torres snapped, her professionalism cracking. "Just be quiet!" Marcus checked his watch again. The Patek Philippe's complications showed time zones across the world. In exactly 18 minutes, Flight 447 would push back from the gate. In exactly 3 hours and 47 minutes, he was scheduled to present to the SkyConnect Airlines Board of Directors. The presentation would determine the future of a $2.3 billion merger deal. The presentation that could reshape American aviation. The presentation that Torres had just realized might not happen. 10:06 a.m. 24 minutes until departure. Mills was looking back and forth between Torres and Marcus, trying to understand what was happening. "Amanda, I don't understand. Who is this man?" Torres finally looked at her, and the expression on her face was one of pure terror. "Jessica, you need to understand something. This man can speak for himself," Marcus interrupted quietly. He opened his briefcase for the first time since arriving at the gate. Inside, clearly visible to anyone standing close enough, were documents that made Torres's face go even whiter. SkyConnect Airlines merger proposal. Washington Capital Partners. Board presentation, confidential. But it was the document on top that made Torres actually take a step backward. Federal Aviation Administration, discrimination complaint form. Sarah Chen's phone caught every detail. Her followers were screenshotting and sharing faster than she could process. #GateGate was trending nationwide. General Manager David Kim arrived in a golf cart, his usual composed demeanor replaced by barely controlled panic. He'd been pulled from a meeting with the airport authority, and his expression suggested he knew exactly why he was here. "Mr. Washington," Kim said, slightly out of breath. "Sir, I cannot express how sorry I am." The apology hung in the air like a confession. Around them, passengers had stopped pretending not to stare. This was better than any in-flight movie. Rodriguez finally found her voice. "David, what's going on? Who is this man?" Kim looked at her with the expression of someone explaining basic math to a child. "Karen, this is Marcus Washington. He's the CEO of Washington Capital Partners." The name didn't register immediately. Mills shrugged slightly. Even Park looked confused. Kim continued, his voice getting quieter with each word. Washington Capital Partners manages a $2.3 billion aviation portfolio. They currently hold a 12% stake in SkyConnect Airlines. The silence that followed was deafening. "We're currently negotiating an $800 million merger deal," Kim continued. "Mr. Washington is scheduled to present to our board of directors in Chicago this afternoon." Rodriguez's face went through several color changes. Mills looked like she was going to be sick. Park suddenly found the floor very interesting. At Travel Truth's live stream had hit 15,000 viewers. The comments were exploding. He owns the airline. This is insane. They're all fired. Best plot twist ever. This is better than Netflix. Marcus reached into his briefcase again, this time pulling out a leather folder. Inside were documents that made Kim's face go pale. Page 47 of the merger agreement, Marcus said quietly. The discrimination incident clause. Kim's hands shook as he found the page. His voice was barely a whisper as he read, "Any incident of discrimination by Sky Connect personnel that results in negative publicity or legal action shall constitute grounds for immediate termination of this agreement." 10:10 a.m., 20 minutes until departure. The live stream audience had grown to 18,000. Video clips were being shared across every social media platform. News outlets were starting to pick up the story. Gate was trending in all 50 states. Torres was making calculations in her head, and none of them were good. A discrimination lawsuit would cost millions. A merger collapse would cost billions. The viral video would cost careers. Marcus closed his briefcase and looked around the gate area. 50 passengers were openly staring now. Multiple phones were recording. The live stream was approaching 20,000 viewers. "I have 3 options," he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the gate area. "I can file a federal discrimination complaint. I can withdraw from the merger negotiations. Or I can let this viral video speak for itself." The threat was quiet, polite, and absolutely devastating. Kim understood the mathematics of power better than anyone. "Mr. Washington, what would you like us to do?" "I'd like to board my flight," Marcus said simply. Mills stepped forward, her earlier confidence replaced by desperation. "Sir, I didn't know—" "That's exactly the problem," Marcus interrupted. "You didn't need to know who I was. You needed to treat me like a human being." The words carried across the gate area like a judgment. Around them, passengers began to nod. The live stream comments were unanimous in their support. Torres was on her radio, speaking in urgent whispers. "I need the airport operations center. We have a situation." "What kind of situation?" "The kind that ends careers," Torres said quietly. 10:12 a.m., 18 minutes until departure. Marcus looked at his watch one more time. The Patek Philippe's complications showed that in Chicago, a boardroom full of executives was waiting for his presentation. In New York, his staff was monitoring the viral video. In Washington, D.C., his lawyers were probably already drafting responses. "You have 15 minutes to make a decision," he said to Kim. "The plane doesn't wait." Kim understood. The decision wasn't about boarding passes or company policy. It was about the future of American aviation, the power of viral media, and the cost of treating people with dignity. The live stream had hit 22,000 viewers. The story was spreading faster than any of them could control. Marcus Washington stood in the same spot where he'd been humiliated 17 minutes earlier. But everything had changed. The real power play was just beginning. 10:12 a.m., 18 minutes until departure. General Manager Kim made the call that would change everything. "Clear the VIP lounge. Emergency corporate meeting, now." The VIP lounge was 50 feet from Gate 7, behind frosted glass doors that provided privacy from the growing crowd of onlookers. At Travel Truth's live stream had hit 25,000 viewers, and the comments were demanding updates every second. Inside the lounge, Kim faced Marcus across a conference table that had hosted airline executives, federal regulators, and corporate lawyers. Today, it would host a reckoning. "Mr. Washington, please help me understand what you need," Kim said, his voice carrying the careful tone of someone negotiating a hostage situation. Marcus opened his briefcase and spread documents across the table. The merger agreement, financial projections, legal contracts, stock option details, Each document represented millions of dollars and thousands of jobs. "Let me help you understand what just happened," Marcus said, his voice calm but carrying the weight of absolute authority. "Your employees racially profiled a passenger. That passenger happens to be the CEO of your largest potential merger partner. The entire incident was live-streamed to 25,000 people and recorded by multiple witnesses." Kim's face went pale as he processed the mathematics of the disaster. Marcus continued, his tone never rising above conversational level. "Washington Capital Partners manages a $2.3 billion aviation portfolio. We hold 12% of SkyConnect Airlines. We employ 847 people across 14 states. We have contracts with 47 airlines globally." He pulled out a specific document. Page 47 of the merger agreement. The discrimination incident clause that your legal team insisted on including. Kim read the clause again, his hands shaking slightly. "Any incident of discrimination by SkyConnect personnel that results in negative publicity or legal action shall constitute grounds for immediate termination of this agreement." "Your legal team wrote that clause," Marcus said quietly. "They never imagined it would apply to their own company." Outside the VIP lounge, the situation was spinning out of control. Travel Truth's live stream had reached 30,000 viewers. The video was being shared across every social media platform. #GateGate was trending nationally. News outlets were starting to pick up the story. Aviation industry reporters were making calls. Stock market analysts were taking notes. Inside the lounge, Marcus laid out the financial consequences with the precision of a surgeon. SkyConnect Airlines stock price, $47.23 per share as of market open. Your company's market cap, $12.4 billion. A discrimination lawsuit would cost you millions in legal fees and settlements. A merger collapse would cost you billions in lost revenue and market position. Kim was making calculations in his head, and none of them were good. "But the viral video," Marcus continued, "that's the real problem. 25,000 people watched your employees humiliate a passenger. By tonight, it'll be millions. By tomorrow, it'll be global news." He pulled out his phone and showed Kim the trending hashtags. #GateGate, #Airline Discrimination, SkyConnect Scandal. The numbers were climbing by the minute. "Your company's diversity metrics," Marcus said, pulling out another document. 3% black executives, 12% minority staff, 47% female employees, but only 18% in management positions. Kim's voice was barely a whisper. "How do you know our internal metrics?" "I'm considering buying your company," Marcus said simply. "I do my research." 10:17 a.m., 13 minutes until departure. Marcus leaned back in his chair, his tone remaining conversational despite the devastation he was delivering. "You have 3 options. I'll let you choose." He held up one finger. "Option 1, full public apology, immediate policy reform, and concrete systemic changes. The merger proceeds as planned. Everyone keeps their jobs. Your stock price recovers." Second finger. Option 2, I file a federal discrimination complaint, withdraw from the merger negotiations, and let my legal team handle the rest. Your stock price tanks, your executives get fired, your shareholders lose billions. Third finger. Option 3, I do nothing. I let the viral video speak for itself. 25,000 people become 25 million. The internet handles your reputation. The market handles your stock price. Kim understood the choice wasn't really a choice at all. "What specific changes do you want?" Kim asked. Marcus opened another folder. Inside were detailed proposals that looked like they'd been prepared by a team of consultants, because they had been. Mandatory anti-bias training for all customer-facing employees, monthly refresher courses, quarterly diversity audits by an independent third party, a bias incident reporting system with direct escalation to executive leadership. Kim was taking notes, his pen moving frantically across the paper. A customer dignity protocol, Marcus continued. No questioning of valid tickets or identification without probable cause. Body cameras for all gate agents. Real-time monitoring of customer interactions. 10:19 a.m., 11 minutes until departure. Timeline? Kim asked. 90 days for full implementation, monthly progress reports to my office, quarterly reviews of bias incident data, annual diversity metrics published publicly. Kim was making calculations. The cost of implementation would be millions. The cost of not implementing would be billions. The employees involved? Kim asked. Jessica Mills, immediate suspension pending full investigation. Karen Rodriguez, demotion and mandatory retraining. James Park, additional bias training and supervision. Kim nodded. The consequences were severe but survivable. Amanda Torres? Kim asked. Promoted, Marcus said. She recognized the situation and acted appropriately. She gets my vote for Director of Customer Experience. Outside the lounge, the live stream had hit 35,000 viewers. The gate area was packed with passengers, airport staff, and curious onlookers. Someone had called local news. Camera crews were setting up. 10:20 a.m. 10 minutes until departure. Marcus checked his watch one final time. The Patek Philippe showed that in Chicago, the boardroom was waiting. In New York, his staff was monitoring the crisis. In Washington, D.C., his lawyers were standing by. You have 5 minutes to make a decision, Marcus said. The plane leaves in 10 minutes. The board meeting is in 3 hours and 47 minutes. Kim looked at the documents spread across the table. The merger agreement, the financial projections, the diversity metrics, the viral video metrics climbing on Marcus's phone. If I agree to all of this, Kim said, the merger proceeds? The merger proceeds, Marcus confirmed. Washington Capital Partners maintains its 12% stake. The $800 million deal closes as scheduled. Your company benefits from our aviation expertise and financial resources. Kim thought about the alternative. A discrimination lawsuit. A merger collapse. A viral video that would follow Sky Connect Airlines for years. I agree, Kim said. Marcus smiled for the second time that morning. Excellent. Shall we make the announcement? 10:22 a.m., 8 minutes until departure. They walked out of the VIP lounge together, Kim looking like a man who'd just negotiated his way out of a corporate death sentence. The gate area was packed with onlookers, phones, and cameras. At Travel Truth's live stream had reached 40,000 viewers. The comments were scrolling too fast to read. What happened? Did he win? Are they fired? This is insane. Best story ever. Kim stepped forward, his voice carrying across the crowded gate area. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm David Kim, General Manager of Sky Connect Airlines. I want to publicly apologize to Mr. Washington for the unacceptable treatment he received today. The crowd fell silent. The live stream audience held its breath. Effective immediately, we are implementing comprehensive anti-bias training for all employees, establishing a customer dignity protocol, and creating an independent oversight system for customer interactions. Marcus stepped forward, his voice calm and authoritative. I appreciate Mr. Kim's swift response and commitment to systemic change. The merger between Washington Capital Partners and Sky Connect Airlines will proceed as scheduled. The crowd erupted in applause. The live stream comments exploded with celebration. Marcus Washington walked calmly to the first-class boarding line, his boarding pass finally honored, his dignity intact. The plane was about to leave. The real victory was just beginning. Marcus Washington walked down the jet bridge with the measured pace of someone who had just reshaped an entire industry. Behind him, the gate area buzzed with the energy of witnesses who had just seen justice delivered in real time. At Travel Truth's live stream had peaked at 45,000 viewers. The video was being shared across every social media platform. #GateGate was trending in 12 countries. Flight attendant Maria Santos greeted Marcus at the aircraft door with the respect that should have been shown 90 minutes earlier. "Mr. Washington, welcome aboard. Your seat is ready." Seat 1A. First class. The seat he'd paid for, deserved, and been denied. As the plane pushed back from the gate, Marcus opened his laptop and began drafting the presentation that would change American aviation forever. 3 hours later, Marcus stood in the Sky Connect Airlines boardroom in Chicago, facing 12 executives who had spent the morning watching viral videos of their company's discrimination crisis. "The Washington Capital Partners merger," he began, "represents more than a financial transaction. It represents a fundamental shift in how airlines treat their customers." The presentation was flawless. The merger was approved unanimously. 1 week later, the changes began. Jessica Mills was terminated after a full investigation revealed a pattern of discriminatory behavior toward minority passengers. Her termination was announced publicly, with Kim stating that, "Discrimination has no place in our company culture." Karen Rodriguez was demoted to customer service representative and required to complete 40 hours of bias training. Her supervisor responsibilities were permanently revoked. James Park received additional training and was reassigned to cargo security, away from customer interactions. Amanda Torres was promoted to Director of Customer Experience, with a mandate to oversee the implementation of the new discrimination prevention system. 2 weeks later, the policy changes were implemented. The Customer Dignity Protocol was instituted across all Sky Connect Airlines locations. Gate agents were prohibited from questioning valid tickets or identification without documented probable cause. Every customer interaction was recorded and reviewed. Mandatory anti-bias training became monthly requirement for all customer-facing employees. The training included video modules, role-playing exercises, and scenario-based testing. Employees who failed the training were suspended until they could demonstrate competency. Body cameras were installed for all gate agents, with footage automatically uploaded to a monitoring system. Customer service interactions were randomly reviewed by supervisors, with bias incidents flagged for immediate investigation. 3 weeks later, the monitoring system went live. The bias incident reporting system allowed passengers to report discrimination immediately through a mobile app. Reports were escalated directly to executive leadership, bypassing middle management. Each incident was investigated within 24 hours, with results posted publicly. Independent audits were conducted quarterly by a third-party diversity consulting firm. The audits examined hiring practices, promotion patterns, customer service metrics, and bias incident data. Results were published on the company website. 1 month later, the first results were published. Bias incidents dropped by 67% in the first month. Customer satisfaction scores increased by 23%. Employee morale improved as clear guidelines eliminated confusion about appropriate behavior. The viral video had been viewed 2.3 million times across all platforms. It became a case study in business schools, law schools, and diversity training programs. 3 months later, the industry began to change. 12 other airlines implemented similar customer dignity protocols. The Aviation Industry Trade Association developed model policies based on the Sky Connect airline system. Federal regulators began requiring bias training for all airline employees. The Department of Transportation established new oversight procedures for discrimination complaints. Marcus Washington became a sought-after speaker on corporate diversity and systemic change. He spoke at conferences, universities, and corporate boardrooms about the power of quiet dignity and economic leverage. 6 months later, the merger was complete. Washington Capital Partners and Sky Connect Airlines officially merged, creating the fourth largest airline in America. The combined company employed 47,000 people across 200 cities. The merger generated $1.2 billion in revenue in its first year. Stock prices increased by 34%. Customer satisfaction reached all-time highs. Marcus was elected chairman of the board, the first black CEO to lead a major American airline. His first board meeting was held in the same room where he'd been humiliated 6 months earlier. The new company's diversity metrics were published quarterly. Black executives increased from 3% to 18%. Minority staff increased from 12% to 31%. Female management increased from 18% to 43%. The Washington Protocol, as it became known, was adopted by corporations across multiple industries. Hotels, restaurants, retail stores, and service companies implemented similar bias prevention systems. 1 year later, the legacy was established. Travel Truth's original video had been viewed 15 million times. Sarah Martinez parlayed her viral success into a career as a diversity consultant for the travel industry. Sarah Chen's phone recording became evidence in a successful class action lawsuit against discriminatory practices in the airline industry. The gate area at Terminal 7 was renamed the Marcus Washington Customer Dignity Center. A plaque commemorated the day when quiet courage and economic power combined to change an entire industry. Marcus Washington's story became required reading in business schools. It demonstrated that systemic change was possible when moral authority was backed by economic leverage. The story proved that dignity was not negotiable, that justice could be delivered quietly, and that real power came from intelligence rather than anger. Marcus Washington had boarded a plane as a passenger. He had landed as a catalyst for change. The transformation was complete. The future was different. 2 years after the incident at Gate 7, Marcus Washington stood in the same terminal, watching passengers board flights with dignity and respect. The changes were visible everywhere. Gate agents wore bias awareness badges. Customer service counters displayed multilingual dignity protocol signs. Mobile apps allowed real-time reporting of discrimination incidents. Body cameras recorded every interaction. The numbers told the story of transformation. Bias incidents across the merged airline had dropped by 89%. Customer satisfaction scores reached industry-leading levels. Employee retention improved by 45%. But the real change was quieter, more profound. It was visible in the respectful tone of gate agents, in the patient explanation of policies, in the assumption that every passenger deserved dignity regardless of their appearance. Marcus's phone buzzed with a familiar notification. Travel Truth was live streaming from Gate 7, showing her followers the memorial plaque that commemorated the day everything changed. 2 years ago, this gate was the scene of viral discrimination, Sarah Martinez said to her camera, her voice carrying the weight of someone who had witnessed history. Today, it's a symbol of how real-life stories can create touching stories of change. The memorial plaque read, "In memory of the day when quiet dignity overcame systemic bias. May all travelers find respect in these halls." Marcus smiled, remembering the fear in Amanda Torres's eyes when she first recognized him. Torres was now Chief Operating Officer of the merged airline, leading diversity initiatives across the industry. The Washington Protocol had spread far beyond aviation. Hotels implemented dignity training for front desk staff. Restaurants adopted bias monitoring systems. Retail stores created customer respect guidelines. Corporate America had learned that discrimination was expensive. Viral videos were permanent. And customers with economic power could reshape entire industries. Marcus's calendar showed 17 speaking engagements in the next month. Business schools wanted to understand the economics of dignity. Law schools studied the intersection of civil rights and corporate governance. Diversity conferences examined the power of quiet resistance. The story had become legend, but the work continued. The newest initiative was the Washington Foundation for Corporate Accountability. The foundation provided grants to minority entrepreneurs, funded bias research, and supported victims of workplace discrimination. Marcus's assistant approached with the latest metrics. "Sir, this month's bias incident reports." The numbers were remarkable. Across all industries that had implemented Washington Protocol variations, discrimination complaints had dropped by 73%. Customer satisfaction had increased by 28%. Employee morale had improved by 34%. The economic impact was measurable. Companies with strong dignity protocols showed 15% higher stock performance. They attracted better talent, retained customers longer, and avoided costly lawsuits. Marcus thought about the moment everything changed. Not when he revealed his identity, but when he chose dignity over anger. When he used economic leverage instead of emotional outrage. When he demanded systemic change instead of personal revenge. The airline industry was different now. But more importantly, corporate America understood that discrimination was not just morally wrong, it was economically stupid. These black stories remind us that life stories can become touching stories of transformation. Real-life stories have the power to change systems, reshape industries, and create lasting change. Marcus Washington had boarded a plane as a passenger. He had landed as a catalyst for an entire movement. The transformation was complete, but the work would never end. Have you witnessed discrimination in your workplace, your travels, or your daily life? Share your story in the comments below. Every voice matters. Every story has power. If this story inspired you, share it with someone who needs to see that quiet dignity can move mountains. Subscribe for more stories of people who changed the world by refusing to accept injustice. Remember, you don't need to be a CEO to demand dignity. You don't need millions of dollars to create change. You just need the courage to stand up and the wisdom to know that your voice matters. What's your story? The world is waiting to hear it.